Welcome to another Biddle Saturday night that I got a notification on the phone because I didn't turn it off. It happens every time. It was, and he's not going to be here, I don't think, this week. He sent me a telegram to basically say his opinion on the challenge of geckos, so we'll have to get into that then. Come on, was it that bad, Zeb? Yep. Hold, hold on 1 second, Zeb. Hold on. They can't hear you.
Can't hear me?
Okay, now they should probably be able to hear you. Try it now.
Did you have everybody muted?
No, it was OBS because I'm on something else right now. So,
right.
yeah, so now they should be able to hear you.
So now they should be able to hear me and my woes with Gecko and why I didn't do it.
Yeah, so tell them about the EFI woes again. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it tries to format your EFI partition. And what I was asking for, has anybody ever got EFI Boot Manager to actually insert an entry back in there that stayed more than one reboot? Because I know the command, but it just doesn't stick. So if you format your EFI partition, you've lost everything you've previously installed. You can get it back, but it's just a real pain in the neck having to do it. So Gecko for me was a non-starter, I'm afraid.
Well, that I think what I did, it sounds like you need to do something similar to what I did with Pop OS, is you create another boot partition, right? You're talking about the FAT32 one, aren't you?
Yes.
Yes. So for me, I installed it on another computer all on its own, so that's not a problem for me. That's what I do when we do the challenges because it stops me from dealing with those issues. But with Pop OS, I just created wherever you're going to install it, just delete that partition and create another 512 and then another ext4 and then install it to that one so it stays separate from the others. So it should use that just on its own, I think. Unless it works differently again, I don't know. But that could be
you're right, Colin. That is the way to do it. And after I completely wiped my whole machine, after having tried to join Team Red, that's what I've done. So I've now got my 6 SSDs, and they've all got their own little 512 EFI. Right. I can just go and pick something different for it to install to. And I think Michael was asking me, does that not cause problems with EFI? No, it doesn't care how many you've got. It just adds them to the list.
It does, yes.
Yeah. So
EFI is quite nice that way, I must say. I didn't realise how good it was till I started using it because you don't have to go through the procedure of OS Prober and update grub and all that. It just adds it. Mm-hmm. So if it's working right, it's really nice. So that when it works.
So we got half a Barbara in the house.
Hi, half Barbara.
Yep.
Barbara, what's going on?
You chop your head off, love, unless you're sitting too close to the camera.
No, I just didn't look at myself to see how it looked.
So right. Barb, we know that you tried Gecko, right?
I used it for about 6 months.
So did you try it this week? I mean, did you install it?
Because I used it until the end of April.
Nice.
So I didn't feel I had to try it again.
Well,
and that was already after they had put in they redid this year's ISO. So,
well, give us your thoughts on it.
The boot stuff can be a little bit weird. I have had things like that, and if you then have something else you install, let's say you get rid of it, it kind of leaves that. That little partition, I found I had to go into G-parted and delete all the partitions before I installed anything else. But I liked it. I used the Tumbleweed Mate version.
Nice.
And it worked really, really well. I didn't, it took a while to get used to Yast, but once I got used to that, it really wasn't that bad. Everything that I needed to do, I could do.
Mhm.
I wouldn't recommend it for a new Linux user. Definitely not. Just because the way it's set up and the terminology and stuff is actually even a little weird compared to Ubuntu. But I liked it, and I didn't have problems with it. But then I'm using older hardware too,
So
so maybe
tumbleweed,
that was why.
Barbara, would that be Gecko's rolling as against
Yes.
Gecko's stable?
Yes, and I had problems with the stable even last year, so that was why I went to the rolling release, and it's pretty well tested before they put it out, which is really, really nice. It's not like some of them where, shall we say, Arch, where you have no idea if the stuff's been tested or not. At least they go through all the automated testing, and I really didn't have things break in the 6 months that I did it, but I had problems with the stable, with Leap, or whatever they call it now. I had problems with that because they used a much older kernel.
Yeah, stable didn't that one used to be 42 point something? Then it went to 15.
Yes, that's the one.
All right, so Dan, what do you think of it?
Yeah, it wasn't bad. I did the XFCE version. It's like Barbara said, it's definitely not for the new user. One thing that's definitely missing is like like a welcome screen or getting started, anything like that. There's none of that. And if you don't know what Calamares is, you wouldn't even know where to begin. You'd be still sitting there in the live environment and confused.
Did you find that the way it kind of explained with partitions, that if you didn't know what you were doing, you could be totally confused?
Yeah, you could still be sitting there looking at it. Yep. But being familiar, it wasn't too bad. It went well. Everything worked. It was light on resources. No problems with that. And nothing out of the box didn't work. There was no non-functional programs. So I was able to get work done. It didn't seem too bad.
Well, I was familiar with the Calamares installer, so it was actually easier than, say, installing OpenSUSE.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I didn't have to worry about none of the ButterFS or any of that situation. It just basically like any other Calamares install.
Yep.
After install, I mean, it has some good things about it. Like I noticed that OpenSUSE, or I guess it's the OpenSUSE guys, they fix the open as root as far as that is working, and they even have a shortcut in the menu to open Dolphin as root, which is pretty awesome, which you can't get on Ubuntu right now. But there were some different choices that they made and I can't remember all of them off the top of my head. I should have used Simple Note and wrote them down, but just like that, where there was a super user or a root open as root for Dolphin, things like that were actually pretty nice, although I'm not really sold on doing everything. Even though running OpenSUSE for a while years ago, I'm still not sold on Yast, just because I guess I'm so used to Ubuntu now. It's weird.
Yes, is weird. It is a little weird. That was
I'll
what
agree.
I found.
It was strange. It was strange.
Keegan's in the house.
Can everybody hear me?
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Hey,
we can
Keegan.
hear you.
What's going on, brother?
Buster, would you stop?
Not
Get
much.
off my computer. Okay. Move. Not you.
So when Ryan turns up,
Publicly
there's a proper
The fat one.
beard.
Go.
There's a what?
There's a proper neck beard for when Ryan turns up.
Right?
Yeah, that's how to grow a beard. Yeah.
Keegan, did you try Gecko?
I've tried it in the past, but I didn't do it this week.
All right. Frank, did you try it?
Yes, sir, I did.
And what'd you think?
I thought it was a great little distro on my 8 gig laptop, and then I thought, well, what the heck? I tried it on a 2 gig desktop machine, and it worked fine.
Nice.
I didn't have too many problems with it. I downloaded the LSQT version by accident because I said I was going to do SFCE, but oh well. But
Yeah, but that's not a big deal though, man.
Yeah.
You know, we picked a distro, like we picked a distro, and we usually leave it open for the desktop environment, and people pick it, but it's not set in stone, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. The only thing I had a problem with, of course, is printer drivers, but I mean, I think I blame Yast on that. I agree with you guys. Yast is kind of a weird animal when you want to add stuff.
Well, I get it's really powerful. Okay, if you basically can do anything in it. It's just that if you're not used to it, or if you don't really want to do it that way, then it becomes difficult. So for somebody that's just trying it out, it may be difficult.
Is that a bit
so I
like
forgot to talk about-
KDE Plasma?
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't liken it to KDE Plasma. I mean, because well, it's complicated, but I guess you're right. It probably is a little bit like KDE. You're right, Zeb.
I'm just thinking about the configuration side of things, because in most OSs you just go to the settings, appearance, and change what you want. But in KDE you seem to have to go to about 4 or 5 different places before you can get the same effect. And I was wondering if Yast is the same sort of beast.
Well, it's got all kinds of different modules inside of it that you have to maneuver around. And like I said, if you're not familiar with it, you're gonna be lost. So
I will say one thing about it is when I put it on that desktop computer with just 2 gigs of memory, I was very surprised at how snappy it was. It worked, and I didn't have any hiccups even when I tried to put it under load. So
nice.
take it for what it's worth.
I was able to get it to print.
Nice.
Hey.
I had no problems with the printer. With HP, I had to make sure if I wanted it to scan. I actually had to install the HP, whatever that.
HP lib, is it?
Yep.
I think.
Yep.
HP.
I installed that and the HP lip GUI, and then I had no problems. I didn't have to do anything else. And once I did that, it could scan.
Well, see, I'm glad your HP worked, because when I went through Yast to download the Epson drivers, it actually crashed.
Oh, really?
It said the Epson driver was a bad driver. So then I tried to go to the Epson website and try to go that back way, and I just couldn't get it to work. Whatever.
Yep. Well, Joe, he left me a telegram to let us know what he did with Gecko, and he tried Gecko Mate. Didn't have a ton of time on it, he said, but it seemed snappy, easy install, and I guess, like I said, if you're familiar with Calamares, Dan, you said that it's not gonna be a problem at all. No real issues. Nice, clean, responsive distro for what little time he had on it. So that's his take on it.
Nice.
Now
So
I
it
tried
really
the
really quick.
I tried the KDE version, and I was kind of like shocked, maybe a little bit, because like I said before, my experience with OpenSUSE years ago was KDE was like the rock solid, stable distro. And maybe it was because I was on Tumbleweed, maybe it was, I don't know. But I still had the same issues of crashing that I did whenever I run KDE. So like the Software Center crashed. Not the Software Center. The system settings crashed. I went and tried to change the sound output settings on it, and the system crashed. So then I go to report the bug, and then it says there's certain programs not installed. To report the bug, you should install them. I'm like, you know what? Like, no, I'm not even going there. So
is it safe to assume you're not running it now?
I'm definitely not running Gecko right now, no.
Oh, right. But the question is, what are you running?
So, Matthias, did you try Gecko?
Probably Linux me from my bad code hard. So.
Matt, I know you tried it. I know you did.
No, definitely didn't.
No?
No. I told Joe I wasn't going to. Let's just put it this way. I'd rather play with Chaos than I'd rather play with Gecko.
I don't know. I like Chaos.
I'm using it right now on the Sony Vaio, actually.
Are you?
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I am running right now, Kubuntu 18.04.
Wow.
Oh,
What do you think, Rocco? There's been a lot of buzz about that one, actually.
Well, it has been not as stable as I'd like it to be, but not as bad as actually Gecko Linux was in crashing. So I still have the same issues where if I go to switch outputs, I can instantly make the whole system tray crash if I switch outputs.
It's not the
And-
bug, it's a feature.
It is. It's a good feature too, and especially because I think KDE specifically, I don't think it's specific to Kubuntu, but it has the most trouble out of any desktop environment that I've tried when I unplug and plug in the headphones. So when I unplug the headphones, it's got the 5.1 surround sound speakers. And then if I plug in the headphones, normally like on GNOME or XFCE, it'll automatically recognize that, switch over, and note without a problem. And KDE is probably only 50% of the time will it switch over. I'll get some dummy output, is what it's called in the sound settings, where you drop down to look at it for whatever reason, and I have to actually unplug the headphones again and plug them back in for it to register.
Is that a phone on issue, like in the back end and stuff, maybe, Rocco?
It has to be, because it's been there for I don't know how long, dude. I mean, it probably the last, I would say, 6 months it's been there for me, where I have issues with the sound outputs. And I was hoping that they would fix it, but I mean, I don't know.
Think you're alone. I don't think you're alone there, Rocco. I've noticed a couple of weird things on Ubuntu GNOME, where I had to keep selecting my headphones. I'm on Linux Mint right now, 19, and I've had to do the same thing. So I don't know whether there's some issues with sound at the moment or what, but I reckon I've noticed something similar. So I don't know. It's just really weird.
The other thing I noticed, I've been trying to test everything to make sure that it's running enough for me. So what I did was I have the 500 gig hard drive, and there's no sense of me, because I have that SSD, no sense of me having all that space go to waste. So I split it in half, and half of it still has Pop OS and half of it running Kubuntu on, and then pointing everything to my other, storage SSD.
Yep.
But when I tried everything, when I tried the gaming specifically, every time I come out of the game, like, it works perfectly in game. It works actually better than GNOME in game. My game never minimizes. Like in GNOME, if I play Rocket League and I get a telegram, my game minimizes. That doesn't happen. It runs perfectly in Kubuntu. It's when I stop the game that I get and it's weird, I've never seen it before, but the text just goes in and out of focus. Like every 2 seconds, it goes into focus and goes out of focus. It just constantly does that. I have to reboot the machine in order to stop it.
That's not good.
That's weird.
I think we need a Go Fund My Hardware page for Rocco.
This is not old hardware, though. I mean, like, I don't, and I seem to be the only person that this affects. Like, nobody else that I talk to, everybody says Kubuntu's awesome, Kubuntu's rock solid, and it is as far as certain things are concerned. But I just run into these ridiculous issues like the sound output and the blurry text, and maybe it's the NVIDIA drivers. Who knows?
There seems to be a common denominator here, Rocco, I must say.
It's me.
Yeah, there's got to be something with the combination of hardware.
Yeah, I would
Either
think.
that or you're in the distro dead zone or something. I don't know.
I don't get that
The
blurred
Bermuda
effect.
Triangle of distros.
Yeah.
I don't get that blurred effect. on my-
Rocco, I'm waiting for a CPU cooler and a case fan. I'm going to put together a machine built out of a Xeon processor, and I'm waiting for the problems to come up. And I know what the problem would be. It will be me until I figure it out. So,
Okay, so Disciple said he gets those issues too with KDE. I think that's what he said. So I don't know. Is that what were you going to say?
I don't get those issues with Kubuntu, and yet I'm running NVIDIA drivers now. Now I am, but I wasn't then. But yeah, no, I don't get those issues at all.
It's so weird. What drivers are you running, Zeb?
The latest, because I always add the Ubuntu. I always add the Ubuntu PPA. That's
I
probably
should
390
probably do that. I'm running the I guess it's the 390.
390.
That's
Yeah.
the problem one, though, isn't it? 390? Isn't that the problem one? I thought.
No.
Everyone had issues with that one?
No, Terry, it was not my eyes going in and out of focus. Okay. What the heck?
Wow.
If you didn't want to go the whole hog and go 396, even if you add the Ubuntu PPA, it will update the 390 drivers to higher number than Ubuntu has. So it will take you another couple of points up. So before going the whole hog, try that first.
Well, I would think with the 1080, it would be good to have the 396.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, like I said, who knows? And I'll try the 396, and the whole system will blow up.
Frederick wants
Then
to
you
know.
have a nice
Rocco.
practice on how to install again.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But maybe, just maybe, I'll be able to get a updated series of the KDE settings done then.
That's
Now,
true.
Is Ryan going to be on tonight?
I don't know. I sent him a link and Michael, so Michael's fashionably late.
Well,
as
maybe
usual.
Zeb might know. I just wanted to ask a question on behalf of one of my subscribers because he did ask. On 99% of the distros that he installs, or even live environment, he has to put the Novo.mode set equals 0 to get it up and running. And then he also has to put that in after install. And he has to drop to a TTY to install the NVIDIA drivers. And and then after that, he has to put that the Novo.mode set equals 0 to get it to boot on 99% of the distros he uses.
And
So
what kind
he's
of video
using
card does he have?
He's got an AMD Ryzen with a GeForce GTX 1050.
Oh, okay.
That should just work.
It should.
Yeah.
It should just
He
work out
says-
of the box.
He says that it's always looking for Intel. That's the very first thing they do.
Because
No?
surely we would suffer exactly the same with NVIDIA. And I would
I
say,
thought it was a bit of a weird problem. That's why I thought I'd ask.
That is
I would
weird.
say 99% of the time it works. Occasionally I'll have to put a no mode set on, but that's only because of it's an obscure distro. All the mainstream distros now actually work, and I would say
Is he-
99% of them get the screen res correct.
Yep.
Yep.
Is he using a laptop or a desktop machine?
I don't know. I didn't ask that question, but it's
it
definitely
must
a
be a desktop.
Ryzen. It
Yeah,
sounds like a
desktop.
desktop, doesn't it? Yeah, I would say so.
In which
Yeah.
case,
Yeah.
then it could be that bumblebee
Because-
issue where it doesn't know.
Back in 12.04, I have my laptop has, the discrete GPU, and it's a whatchamahoozy. It's an NVIDIA, and I had problems with that and how to do the no mode set equals 0. I don't have to do that anymore, but I did
Yeah.
back in Ubuntu 12.04. And
I
it was
just
the
thought it was
NVIDIA
really-
driver. It was the NVIDIA card.
It was
So
the
let me
NVIDIA
get this-
card.
Let me ask you a question. This guy is running a machine with a NVIDIA card, and his machine continues to say Intel.
No, I think it was his belief that it's looking for the Intel drivers first. Maybe that's what he thinks. But
Well,
he's
the only-
running a Ryzen 5 1500X quad core processor with a GeForce GTX graphics card 1050. So I would have thought those two things there would have just worked out of the box, but
I'm still confused because if he's running a Ryzen processor, why would the machine even think about using an Intel driver?
Because it's a
Yeah,
laptop
that's
and it's probably got dual.
That's what I was thinking. That's why I asked if it was a laptop or a desktop, because I had that with this one back with 12.04, because it has the Intel integrated graphics and then the separate.
So unless he's worried about battery life, tell him to go into the BIOS and completely disable the Intel graphics.
Yep.
that's a good idea, Zeb. Yeah, yeah.
But if he's running a Ryzen, he doesn't have an Intel graphics card. I'm
Yeah,
very
that's
sure.
what I was saying. If you're
Is
running,
that right?
running
No,
a
what
Ryzen, would
but
have
he's saying
Intel
that the
graphics.
OS is looking for it. That's the thing. So, like when the OS boots, it's looking for an Intel chipset. Apparently, is what he's thinking. So you're going to have to tell the BIOS that there isn't one in order for it to for the IO to actually recognize and blacklist the Intel card, basically.
Yep. Is that
So
what
Matthias,
happens? Do the distros look for Intel first? Are they set to do that, or no? Does
shouldn't
anybody
it's
know?
only what's in your hardware, but I was wondering,
Okay.
that what you're saying, Matthias, is you can't have an AMD CPU with an Intel chipset. Because it would be the AMD chipset, would it? Okay.
I was going to say, generically, AMD, if they ship stuff, it's going to have an AMD, the integrated graphics for AMD. So maybe it's the AMD like kernel modules for the graphics now, getting confused with the NVIDIA, the Nuevo stuff. Who knows? Like there could be a conflict there. So
you can set it to boot from the PCI Express card first. Maybe try that.
Yeah.
What's that? Sorry, Matthias, say that again.
In the BIOS,
Yep.
you usually can choose what graphic card to boot. If you should boot on integrated, or if you boot on the PCIe Express card.
Right. Okay. All right.
And you choose the PCIe.
And normally they set it to auto, so that if anybody does insert
Yeah,
a graphics
normally,
card,
but I guess it could matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But when it's trying to start Linux, it's already gone through the BIOS setting, so it shouldn't matter. But
it is an interesting one. That's why I thought I'd bring that up today, because the gentleman's from Germany. He says he loves Linux, but it's just a lot of hard work. And I just hate to see somebody say that, because it's a shame.
Well, we think we gotten to the point where it's not as bad as it used to be. It's really good. It's improving. But I guess for people that, don't use it regularly, it's going to be a little bit hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Our user experience is going to be a lot different than somebody else that's just going to do it.
Well, it's
Carl.
Sometimes you forget, like how it is to be a new user, where you're not, we're so familiar with things that it's like second nature to us. It's like, oh yeah, but
that's
when you're new or you're just coming over from Windows, everything's Greek. Everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally foreign. Totally foreign.
It is.
Yep.
I think it sounds like he's been running Linux for a little while anyway, because he knows how to get himself through the how to set the no mode set anyway and all that. So how to set it in the grub. So he's familiar with that. So he must have just learnt his way through that, and that's the way it has to. He said Pop OS doesn't happen, and there was another one he said doesn't happen either. So Pop OS is one that actually goes through and works well for him. So I don't know whether.
Well, Pop OS has the NVIDIA ISO, so maybe that's one
it does,
of the reasons.
doesn't it? Yeah, it does. Yes, that's correct. So that's interesting too, isn't it?
But it's also weird that he's having to drop to the terminal to install the NVIDIA. I mean, has he tried Ubuntu Basic?
Yeah, he said, let me find out.
Because that's got the additional drivers module, and that just works.
The only Linux distros working with NVIDIA out of the box is Manjaro and Pop OS, he says. So, and maybe they're not the sort of distros he wants to run, I'm not sure.
Rocco, you found a kindred spirit with hardware.
We're not alone.
Carl Schneider in the house.
Carl.
How's everybody doing?
Did you try Gecko, dude, or what?
Yes, I did. How's my volume?
Yes, fine.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, Gecko. It was pretty good, actually. I liked it.
Nice.
I haven't used OpenSUSE in a long time, and it was very, super stable. The only weird thing was in Yast.
You can stop right there. That's it. Just stop right there.
All of the security features, I couldn't get any of the security features to run, like the firewall and whatever, a few other programs they have in there.
Well, you jogged my memory as one of the things that was different about it. When you, well, at least for me, I downloaded the KDE version, so it comes as the folder view where you see the desktop icons. And normally you just right click and hit configure desktop and you change it to desktop layout where it takes away the icons. Well, that one, the folder view, when you go into the configure desktop, it's grayed out. So you can't switch it.
Oh,
So I'm not exactly sure if that's planned that way or if it was just a feature on my machine. But
Feature, not a bug, right? Yeah.
I'm gonna go back.
I have found a problem with KDE. It's like Fight Club and with the bugs on KDE. Everybody's in on Fight Club, but nobody's talking about it.
Prophetics in the house.
and we can't hear your mic, buddy.
Yeah,
No,
I think you're on Pulse Audio.
Zoom cracks again.
I'm not going to blame it on Zoom. I'm going to blame it on Pulse.
Yes.
It could be. It could be Zoom, but we'll just blame it on Pulse.
Yeah. No.
So in my Gecko Linux, I've got firewall by default. Is he saying he couldn't get firewall working or he couldn't get it installed?
It just wouldn't. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't open. The app itself would. I'm in it right now. Actually, let me check.
Okay, now mine's telling me you need firewall-config installed. That's what mine says.
Yeah. That's what mine said too.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
Yep.
You should just be able to turn it on and work. That's it. Like with a
Well, if
bunch
it's
of.
installed by default, the dependency should be in there, right? You would think
Yeah.
anyway. Yeah.
Well, I don't think I've ever had a distro where GUFW isn't installed by default and just works. Maybe not the GUFW side of it, but certainly the firewall. You can go to a command line and go, "Boss, start that, please," and it's there.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
That's very strange.
Somebody's making fun of you being a pixel hunter, Rocco.
Yes, I know. Hey, if there's something wrong, I'll find it. Trust me. Okay. So you go into. I'm in Kubuntu, and if you go into the system settings and you try to change the desktop theme, at least for me on this machine, I don't know if it happens to everybody else, but I changed the window borders to another different window border. And every theme besides Breeze is a pixel off on each side. Like it's shorter. Like the window border is not flush with the window. It's like a pixel in on each side. I don't get it. But if you switch back to the Breeze, it's perfectly centered.
Does Michael know about this? Does he know about this? Where is he when you need him?
These are the things I notice, man. I mean,
We're ragging on Plasma. You're supposed to show up, Michael.
yeah, right? He usually shows up instantly. I don't know what the problem is here.
It's like his bat signal. He just hears Plasma. What?
Yep.
But don't you find that Breeze is just a very good setting anyway, no matter what distro you're using? If you're having problems, just go and try and hunt down Breeze and everything just gel back into place.
It's definitely one of the best themes out there.
Yeah.
But I think that for me, anyway, I've just used it so much that it's usually the first thing I switch.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'll do something like adapt a theme or something like that. And that may get overused after a certain amount of time too. But, I mean, still, Breeze is a great theme.
So you're a theme hopper now then?
Maybe. But that is one thing about KDE that's very hard to find. A cohesive theme all across the board. Even GTK apps. You might even be able to find one or two that's across the Qt apps that it works great. But then when you go to GTK, it's kind of like, and I use Thunderbird and a couple apps that are really important, and they don't always transfer. So I don't know.
That's not a limit of Qt. That's the limit of GTK and trying to interpret the hodgepodginess of GTK into Qt.
Mm-hmm. Anna's got a question in chat. It says, can someone tell me why the icons on KDE are the size for my grandmother to see? I mean, they are huge on the desktop.
They're not no bigger than GNOME.
Yeah, if you got it, you flaunt it.
That's right.
They can't be any bigger than GNOME when the thing takes up the entire screen.
Well, wait. No, I didn't think they could get bigger than GNOME, but wait now. In GNOME you got the left panel there, and there I guess 48 pixels for that icon, and you install Latte Dock, which is one of my favorite things to install on KDE, and the default icon size for Latte Dock is 64 pixels. I mean, they are
Yeah, they are.
The screen.
But I'm enjoying it right now, so we'll see how long it lasts. These little things that I talk about like the blurry text and those stuff, there's nothing like KDE as far as a desktop. When you combine everything that it offers, from being able to set the system tray, it's the only desktop environment that you can set the system tray to hide what you don't want to see and allow what you do want to see. Like little things like that, KDE Connect, Dolphin, all these things are awesome, and yet it's probably those little things like the blurry text that's going to stop me from using it on a long period.
Well, speaking of themes, Rocco, in Linux Mint 19, the actual window border itself cannot be selected. If you install themes, it's not there for selection. It's got to be done in the deconf editor on Linux Mint 19.
What's got to be done in the deconf editor?
The window border selection.
Really?
Yes, because apparently the developers of the icons, from what I believe, have not caught up to Metacity 3, and Linux Mint has locked it out for now. So you can change it, but it's got to be done in deconf editor.
Wow. That's surprising, because usually they don't allow something like that to get by.
So I think that's the story. I'm not 100% sure about the story, but I believe that the developers of GTK or whatever, however that works, I'm not sure how it works, but they're not caught up with Metacity 3.
Right.
So maybe to stop anything from looking buggy or horrid or something, maybe they've locked it out so people can't change the theme. I'm not sure, but it looks all right anyway. So I don't know. That was just a weird one, but that's the way it's working at the moment. Yeah.
Prophetic, you get your sound working?
I think so.
Yes.
There you go.
Love it.
That was actually maybe the first strike against Mint, because I was just on my Mint machine and it wasn't picking up my my audio stuff. So, or Pulse, as you guys mentioned.
I was gonna say you must be on your Neon machine if it's working.
Oh yeah. Oh, which by the way, I can change my Windows decorations just fine.
Can
on
you?
my Neon machine too. Someone has to rep while Mike is gone.
I will even go one further. Rocco, I gave Ubuntu proper a chance with GNOME.
Nice. And
I still hate GNOME.
I'm just surprised his hair didn't fall off while trying it.
Come on, Matt. In all seriousness,
in all seriousness, the Ubuntu implementation, I'm specifically talking the default Ubuntu experience, is about 500 times better than a Fedora install. Like, by
don't
default.
say that when Ryan's around.
Well, Ryan is also the one insane enough to want to run Wayland. So, to me, they fix a lot of my gripes with GNOME itself, as far as like just stupid things like the being able to move the dash or the panel or whatever the heck they're calling it. Just small stuff like that. The default theme is actually not bad. I'm just not a fan of like the in-your-face nature of like the activities panel and like all that stuff just irks the crap out of me, because it's like it locks everything else out of, and like that's the one. It's like this one task mentality, and it annoys the crap out of me. Like if you try multitasking to me in GNOME, it's like so counterintuitive.
Yep.
But Rocco, you actually like when it comes to multitasking, because some jobs require like heavy multitasking. Some is just like you're on one document for a significant period of time. When you guys are doing multitasking, does it make sense to you with GNOME?
I think I have. Okay, so a lot of people will say multitasking will be better with like things like i3, but I find that it doesn't really. I usually adapt to whatever I'm on. Like I'm on KDE right now, and I got 7 windows open on this screen and a couple on that one. So I just usually place my windows in spots that I can get to all of them. So I don't think GNOME offers an advantage to it because when you try to switch the windows through the keyboard and stuff like that, you're going to have the darkness, the
fade
brightness,
out.
yeah, the fade out and that stuff. So that's not really good to have. And actually, I just had it happen like a couple minutes ago with KDE here, and I'm not sure how I did it. But the fade out came along, and yeah. So I usually try to adapt and just put my windows in spots that I can see at least a part of them and switch back and forth because it's using it through the desktop offers no advantage to me anyway.
Mm.
But surely if you're multitasking, don't you alt tab to the next one you want to go to?
No, because that will usually pull up, especially in KDE, and I usually do the I forget what it's called, the one where it has the big middle pane of preview of what you're on, and then your side windows are like kind of slid behind cards there. So that will automatically change like the live stream if you would use it.
Yeah.
So there's no way that I can do that.
Right, yeah. But that's a specific live stream issue, not necessarily a multitasking workflow issue.
Right. Yeah. Specific to me and what I'm doing. So
I'm actually having my Alt tab not work in Neon right now.
Really?
Yeah, and I found a bug. Like a good
nice
Linux user.
Very good.
And I found some other dude on the forums who had the same issue. And I just like copied him. I'm not gonna lie, I just copied and pasted what he wrote. Like this happened to me too, by the way.
Hold on,
guy's user.
Forgive me for maybe blaming a black screen, but here. Oh yeah, mine works. Yeah.
Oh cool.
was his initials MT?
No.
Yeah.
No, but yeah. So I've been kind of having some hiccups with Neon, just small ones, but nothing crazy. So I gotta be honest.
So how long have you been running Neon?
I've been running Neon for probably close to maybe 9 months.
Wow.
For a while. Neon,
the same install?
The same install. I had one major scare where I think it was when it was going to 5. I forget exactly which point, but it might have been like 11 to 12 or 12 to 13. I forget. And my all black screen.
Wow.
All black screen scared the crap out of me. And here's the thing: I got burned in the middle of a board meeting for my church.
Ooh.
So I'm trying to like pull stuff up, take notes, Google some things while we're talking, and I'm just seeing black screen. So it was like when this is kind of like the story of Linux, right? Like usually when you get it set up right, it's great. But then when it bites you, man, does it bite you hard? Or those printer drivers when you really need to print that resume for that like interview or something. Like sometimes, man, when it breaks down, it really gets you at the worst possible time.
So were you like out of commission for that day as far as the
I had
meeting?
to use Windows 7. My Windows 7 partition, which is like just barely enough storage to install anything.
Hey guys, look, I can use Linux. Oh, I can't.
Yeah. I'm always bragging about it too. But yeah, and then later that night, I just did some terminal stuff and got it up and going.
So,
go ahead, Seb.
Has anybody tried the KDE Dark variant that they've now put up on SourceForge, which is apparently Neon on the 1804 base?
I saw it, and no, I didn't try it.
When you say
that's
dark
kind of
area,
scary.
Is that a theme or is
I don't
that
know. They've just called it KDE Dark LTS.
It's on the 1804 base. Is basically what the gist of it is. So it's Neon on the 1804 base, but it seems to me that this is somebody, and I even mentioned it to Michael, that it sounds like it's somebody who's just one guy making this work. So I don't know if I would trust it on my main machine.
Agreed. I'm going rogue.
When does,
Yeah.
when does the actual Neon go to 1804? Is that happening soon?
They haven't said yet, I don't think.
They haven't said no.
I wouldn't hold your breath either.
Is
I
that-
think that would be pretty awesome on the 1804 KDE Neon.
I think that'll solve a lot of issues for
Yeah.
me for KDE Neon. I ran Neon for a while, and there were many issues, almost like you had, Prophetic, where when you had that update, and for me, it was more in the first point releases.
I think someone's monkey is having a good old time in the background. Everyone, just remember to turn off your monkeys when you're on Biddle.
I think it's a
God, with a
parakeet.
squeeze toy.
Oh, a squeeze toy. Love it.
But for me with Neon, it was always on the 0.1 or 0.2 release where they weren't perfected yet. And then by the 3 and 4 and 5, they were fine. But like that first couple point releases were pretty rough sometimes for KDE specifically. So, but I think, like I said, once they go to 1804, I think it'll be much better. And maybe I'll try it again.
I think so. The only problem with Neon is when you're running Neon, there just seems to be an abundance of updates come through constantly, which was my experience the last time I run it. There's always updates constantly.
Well, if
that's
you
the
use
point.
Arch, you should be used to that.
Yeah, you should try Arch.
No, I'm not an Arch user.
Sometimes in Arch you get updates while you're running updates.
Right.
Right?
People are forgetting is that's the whole point for
Exactly.
Neon. It's not meant to be a day-to-day distribution. It's meant to be a testing bed for
Yes,
Plasma.
Right.
It is.
So, if you go on the KDE user edition, you get fewer updates. If you're mad enough to go on to the developer edition or the unstable developer edition, they come through every second, let alone every minute.
Yeah, true.
Disciple, we don't talk about that. Arch isn't that bad. You'd have to let us know. So until you can come on and let us know why it's not that bad, it's bad.
I don't think there's anybody on tonight who's using Arch, is there?
I'm using Manjaro. I mean, it's
Manjaro.
yeah.
Arch based.
Oh, okay.
The Arch fanboys will kill you if you say it's Arch.
Which
Yes.
one, Dan?
Well,
What environment?
Manjaro is really nice.
Yeah.
It is.
And I think Frank's trying to talk to us, but he's muted.
Oh, Frank,
Yes,
are you muted?
Yes, he is.
Try it
There
now.
we go.
Yeah, you're okay now. Because you're an
I
Arch
am
user, aren't
using
you?
Arco Linux, which is Arch based, and it
Yeah, Arco.
works. So
Yep. Arco.
Frank, how long have you been running Arco?
now it's been over a month.
Ooh. No funky stuff
which-
happening?
No funky stuff has ever happened. I don't have any issues with Arch. I love how Barbara just keeps bashing on Arch, and I just smile and use it.
Well, we talked about Arco a couple weeks ago. We had I guess the challenge was Arco Linux.
Yeah, it
couple weeks
was.
ago,
Yeah,
wasn't
one
it?
of the challenges was.
And then Eric Dubois posted on that video, that Biddle video, and pointed to a YouTube video that he made about what the difference of the versions were, what the point of everything was. Like we joked about the C version.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you should check that out if you didn't yet.
Which version did you install, Frank?
The thing about Arco, since I've been using Arco, is I had to figure out my printer drivers, and I got that figured out, and I figured out how to get my Steam to work.
Mhm.
And ever since then, I've been
Nice.
happy as a clam.
So did you just install the Arco Linux, just the straight out Arco Linux, or did you try the D or the B? Which one did you do?
No, I did a straight out Arco Linux with the, if I want to, I press Alt F3 and I got the SFCE menu if I need it, but I use OpenBots 99% of the time.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, Arco Linux just works, and it's only if you want to dabble that you have to mess with the B and the D, or the D and the B. Because I think the D is the next level when you can choose your desktop, and the B version is when you have to build your own.
Yeah, build your own.
Yes, I did the D. I tried the D, and
I've been
Budge
I've been
desktop
watching
with
a
that.
lot of Eric videos, and I think
Yeah.
he's using it as a teaching tool, which is great.
Yeah, it's
But
great.
if you just want something that works, hey,
Yep. So, Carl, what Manjaro are you using?
KDE.
Good.
Yeah, my man.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good.
Dan, what are you using for
same
Manjaro?
here. Yeah, KDE.
Oh,
KDE.
nice.
So, did you see Rob's video on KDE? He
Yep.
wasn't too happy at all.
No, he had some issues. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I didn't see it. What issues did he have?
His Wi-Fi wasn't connecting on
Yep.
startup, and he had to reboot, and happened a few times. And I think there was a couple other things that was happening. I can't remember what they were. The Wi-Fi was the main one.
Yeah, he said it was really laggy. He had to disable some of the
That's right. Yes.
effects and stuff.
Animations.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
weird. Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I did notice that on Kubuntu here, when I reboot, it doesn't remember my Wi-Fi password. It'll pop up saying it's deactivated and ask me for the password every time I reboot. So
That
Right.
happened to me at I think 1704, and it drove me nuts.
Yeah,
it's the
it's got
reason.
to-
It's the reason why I went to Neon. To be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I take this all over. I mean, I use it here at home. I take it elsewhere, and everywhere I go, it just remembers my Wi-Fi and seems to connect. So, I don't know.
So this must be a hardware thing again, right? It's got to be a hardware thing. Everything that happens in Linux has got to be hardware related on most occasions, I would say.
Yeah, but remembering a
like the lights?
password, the hardware doesn't remember the password, does it?
Yeah, that's part of the network
I
manager, I
know,
think.
but
Yeah.
I don't know. I think hardware can just cause funny things. I don't know.
Yeah, I think when it comes to like things like that, I just have like a zero tolerance. It's like that's something that you can face in 2008 or 9, you know, where it's like silly things like that. If a distro as great as, you know, Kubuntu is having a problem with remembering my password, okay, maybe I messed up on something, but chances are it's somebody missed something, and it's hard to catch. Of course, you got to report your bugs, but I think right now, like we're just so beyond that, you know. So I have such a low tolerance for that kind of stuff, and I hop. That's when I see something like that, I'm like, I'm not bothered with it. Hopping.
And that's
Well,
probably
that goes along with the same thing when printers don't work and scanners don't
printers.
work. I'm sorry, those things should just work.
Mm.
And it shouldn't matter whether you have an Epson printer, an HP printer. I realize the brother printers always, everyone, I don't have one, but other people complain. But they should just work. And that and networks and stuff and video cards.
Yep.
You know,
Well-
you're right. This is not 2008 anymore.
But
Well,
that
speaking-
regression thing is probably the thing that frustrates me the most about Linux. You get something up and running and working, and it's absolutely perfect. An update comes through, and something's just fallen off the edge. And it makes me wonder, do they have things like version control and software testing before they put this stuff out in the wild? Or are we their software testers?
I think they go through an automated testing, but who knows how much manual testing they go through.
It'd have to be hard to test all hardware, though, wouldn't it? There's so many
It's
different Wi-Fi
Correct.
cards
Correct.
and all that sort of. There's just they wouldn't be able to test it all, would they? It'd be
No,
impossible.
they wouldn't.
Even Microsoft can't test all of it. Once you realize,
No.
no,
Yeah,
because
but
you get
remembering-
combination.
Sorry, Barbara. Remembering a password has got nothing to do with the hardware.
No,
It's the
true.
software that says, here's a password that this piece of machinery needs. Remember it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I agree with
whether
that,
that's
Ted.
a Broadcom or an Intel or whatever
Yep.
you want.
I have
Yeah,
to agree.
It's definitely a network manager thing. It's not a hardware thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But to be fair, last night I was asked to look at a Windows 10 machine that was having a problem with a scanner, and it was an Epson combination printer scanner.
God, I hate those.
And no matter what I did, the Windows 10 will not recognize the scanner. But I can print with it, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's Windows 10 has some issues with the printers and scanners sometimes too. I mean, when I was running Windows 8, I updated to 8.1 because it had a much better interface than 8, and my printer wouldn't work. It just would not work on Windows 8.1 at all. And no matter how long I was on it for, I could not find updated drivers, and that was the end of it for me.
Mhm.
It was
And yet-
annoying.
For me, on Linux, I can't get my brother laser printer to work. Plug it into a Windows machine, bosh, it prints straight away. So
Right.
it is
Right.
hardware dependent in that regard as to what will or what won't work on,
Yeah.
on the distro you're
But I
using.
want to be fair to Linux and Windows. I have a Lexmark laser printer that I bought years ago, and I loved it. the Windows version Vista came out, and Letsmart just said, we're not making printer drivers for that, and I can't get it to work even. I can work it on Linux, but it will never work on a Windows machine again.
Mm-hmm.
I think Lexmark upset a lot of people. Lexmark, they did some weird things. I had one of their. I chucked it away. Hard rubbish. See you later. Gone. Never have those again. I promised myself.
Next month are horrible.
Yeah.
Well, the most disappointing thing for me is on Linux with the printers is that, I don't maybe expect every feature of a brand new printer to work, but like I have an HP printer. I shouldn't have to download the HP proprietary drivers in order for the scanner to work.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Like it'll print, and that's basically all it'll do. If you want to use the scanner, you got to download the HP drivers, and it's like, okay, so maybe if there was like extra features or specific features you wanted, maybe you need the HP drivers, but why do I need it just to scan a document? That's what's frustrating to me.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting with Ubuntu, the scanner works with the HP printer, the multifunction printer. But with other distros, you have to maybe they include the drivers. I think that's probably what it is. But, I have not found that with any other distro except for Ubuntu. It works. I can, print, scan, whatever without a problem, without having to add any extra software.
Well, there are certain distros that I have to install the HP drivers on, and there's certain distros like, I'll be honest, Ubuntu Mate failed to install the HP proprietary drivers, having an error with it. But either way, printers are going to be different, just like the computer hardware that they're running on. So a scanner might work for you, Barb, might not work for somebody else as far as like that printer. So that printer that I have is it's not the latest technology, but it's probably only a couple months old. And yet I got to install the HP driver for it to work. So
yeah, but a thing like a scanner should work because it should by default be compatible with the Twig drivers, which is industry standard.
Yep.
Just like the printer, it's caps, and it just works. Should just work. So for the basic functions, it shouldn't be a problem.
I had to install like Windows 10 all over again for my dad's laptop to get the Epson printer drivers to take.
Wow.
That's how crazy it was. So on one hand, like we're definitely spoiled. We're lucky talking like this, like, oh, we should just, all the battles that were won before our time, like in the early days. But here's the tricky part, and this is where I get kind of frustrated with Linux advocates. Is especially the time when I came in, Ubuntu's tagline was like Linux for human beings. And I heard this phrase a lot. Linux, it just works. And when it didn't, it infuriated me because my expectations were to be so high, like, oh, everything's going to work because it's Linux as a new user coming to it within my first year. And it was still not the case. And so I put out there to the group, do you guys think that phrase, like it just works, should be used still? Like we've come a long way. We're really in a great position. And for printer drivers, I do give somewhat of a pass because there's so many variations and it's such like a money cash grab for these companies that they want to make these small little variations to things because they make more money that way. So for printer drivers, I do have a pass. But do you guys think we should still be saying like Linux, it just works? Because I've actually seen that in Linux articles every once in a while, like the past couple of years. Not too much anymore, but I've seen it. Should we be using that phrase for like new users?
I think it can't be helped for somebody who's had a great experience on Linux. Maybe, they can say that because that was their experience, but the experience differs from person to person, hardware to hardware. And if you happen to be lucky enough, you tried it first go and everything worked. Are you referring to that one with the journalist? Is that one of them that you're referring
I've seen
to?
it with journalists. I've seen it with Linux, like a hardcore evangelist, and I've seen it from like new users who come for like I think it might be that one journalist who used that phrase just recently. I think it was on Four Group Business, and it's I think it's like you got to be careful because the margin of error is like it takes that one thing to not work and it throws off everything, and so that tolerance level. That should be very high, and or depending on who you are. But like for example, Tesla and self-driving cars. Like for us to be like, all right, we got it in the bag, it's A-okay. That threshold has to be like 99.9%. If it's not, and someone dies or someone like it, it's like I don't care if it's 98%. You're not there yet. You're still along. That 1% could be a big factor for someone. And it throws the experience all together. So it's like for me, it's like from my marketing background, it's like a expectation management. You got to be prepared to manage that because you're right. Like one person could have a great experience, but that one person who doesn't, they can have a loud mouth and tear down the opportunities for someone else. So I don't know. It's probably can't be solved, but I just don't like that phrase anymore.
But with Windows, everybody expects it not to work, so
that's true. Yeah, but it's just like we talked about the other week about hardware. You can have a good experience with, say, EVGA hardware, and like me, I have a good experience with EVGA hardware and video cards. I will not buy a different video card from a different maker other than EVGA because of that. But you're right. I think we do have to be careful because if I walked around and said EVGA cards are the best ever, I mean, I had people in line the other week talking about how terrible EVGA cards were.
Wow.
So it's all about what you've experienced. We just you're right. We got to be careful in how we say it because we could lose people from switching over by saying, hey, this is the best thing ever and it just works.
But it's strange for some, like you said. For you, EVGA works great, but for some, you can take MSI. It doesn't work for some, or EVGA or ASUS. And even if they buy something from that manufacturer several years apart, it never works for them.
Right.
Why? I don't know, but it's
about telling that whole story. I think that's what Rocco was trying to say. Like we got to tell the whole story. Like for me, it worked, but maybe and you almost have like disclaimer, this asterisk at the end of every time you say it worked great for me. I love it, but your mileage may vary, like that kind of thing. And I think I think those things go a long way, especially for a new user. It goes a long way. They might be more forgiving than we actually think, unless that's.
But therein lies the problem. No enthusiastic Linux user is going to want to say, "But your mileage may vary." They're going to want to say, "This is the best thing since sliced bread."
That's true. That can happen. I mean, on some of my videos that I make, I show the difference between Synaptic installing with the terminal and installing with the software managers, just so people have an idea on how Linux works and go back to the roots a little bit.
That's good.
But it's also when I set up a Linux distro, I like to try and do it as a new user and just do everything graphically. And that tells me how good a distro is. Now, how far do you go with that? I mean, if you're going to use VirtualBox, you need to add groups and stuff. It's very hard to do things graphically. And then when you install a virtual machine, that also needs to have things done in the terminal. There's no way around it. So, I mean, how far do you go where you say that Linux is at a point where it is good for a new user? That's
I think it also depends on what that user is, what they're going to be using it for.
Right.
And it really boils down to that.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be doing some esoteric stuff, well, you may run into problems no matter what.
That's
but
true.
If you're just going to sit there and do
couch browsing,
tech and going on the web and stuff, well, then it probably does just work. In the occasional printing.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
So it really depends on the use case.
Yes.
I was going to say, I definitely agree. It really does depend on the user and the use case, and you have to take into account each and every situation of that particular user. My biggest gripe is I think people with what Prophetic's talking about with the whole just works tag, The problem is we created that ourselves in the Linux community because we always used to rag on Windows about it never working.
Yeah, I think that's a context. Exactly right.
And the problem is we talk so much about, Microsoft not working, and we end up stealing an Apple tagline.
Mm.
Yeah.
It is really what it boils down to, because what is Apple always talking about? And sorry, IDOS Geek isn't here. But their tagline is basically it just works, because
remember,
they control everything.
They have total control of the hardware and the software.
Yeah, but it still doesn't work.
When
That
I
probably
went
helps him.
from Windows,
Frank, you're muted.
Yeah, Frank's muted.
huh? Who's muted? Me?
Frank.
Frank,
Frank.
muted
He
again.
looked like he's going into
He's
business.
running into problems. So it's up to the user and the hardware. I don't care if it's Windows. I don't care if it's Apple. I don't care if it's Linux. There's always somebody having problems. So the just works tagline is just a saying.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we should
It's pure marketing. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And it's all relative. It depends on how much of it is working. And a lot of people have come to the point to accept that, well, gee, I have this computer and I have all the software and it's going to work most of the time, but then sometimes it doesn't. But they that would not be acceptable with your car.
That's my point. Exactly. That's my point. It's like, that's not acceptable, especially for a personal device like a laptop. Like we use it every day, looking at it hours and hours and hours. That one thing, that's one shortcoming could tear down everything else. And so that's why I kind of like push back a little bit on the it just works type thing. And we have to be careful with that.
Well, if you one thing I really noticed with Windows is that if you've got a laptop and somebody's had problems with the laptop and you've got to reinstall Windows, now if the recovery disk was never made, right,
You're screwed.
and you just get an ISO and installed it, especially Windows 7 and all that, you are going all over the internet, all these places to get the drivers for Windows. So if you put a Linux on, yes, it just works, right? So, there's
in theory.
In theory.
In core drivers, yes. Core drivers, yes. But then we don't make that distinction.
Like that. So, there's a big difference there as well. So, Linux can be quite good just installing it and everything. Most things work, especially if you put the right base, which is Ubuntu, because it's well supported from a lot, from everywhere. So,
but Windows 10 has become a lot better at doing that.
Agreed.
Yes, I agree. I agree. It has. Yeah, it picks up a lot of drivers now. It still doesn't. Some drivers I've noticed, but it's probably a lot better now than what.
Yeah, well, my main machine's only 2 years old.
Everything either, so.
Yeah.
My main machine's only 2 years old, and it hasn't got a clue what the Intel, the internet card is. I have to get my CD out every single time and point it. So if I want to install Windows, I have to do it via Wi-Fi. And then even when I've got Wi-Fi up and running and I say, go and find this driver on the internet, it can't find it. So I've no idea what sort of internet card, Ethernet card they've put in there, but Windows 10. But every single time Linux finds it. So, it's quite bizarre.
I've had that problem too, Zed, to be honest,
And talking of Windows 10, I had to leave my install because it was trying to do, I think, the 1803 updates. And it got stuck after 4.5 hours on 25%. And it's like, hey, I need a computer.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So 35 minutes later, I was fully up and running on Peppermint. So, why should I have to wait 12 hours to get a full Windows 10 install? It's just ludicrous.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And somebody in the Ubuntu podcast Telegram channel was debating about the downtime on the Windows 10 systems, that are like, it's not that big of a deal and all this other stuff. It was like, have you been down for days because of an update to Windows 10?
Yeah, but I think, Matt, that goes back to what Prophetic was saying, where that goes back to the user experience.
It does.
So for me, like, I have a Windows 10 hard drive, and I have not run into that problem where it just hangs on an update. Every time that it updates fine, and it usually updates within like a few minutes, and I'm back up and running. So I could sit there and say I have the experience of
Windows, it just works.
Windows 10, it just works. It's great. I mean, they've gotten so much better, but yet Zeb had a completely opposite experience. It just comes down to what you've experienced.
But I'd really be interested to see one of those big updates work in just a few minutes. I mean, it used to work in about 30 minutes for me, the big updates. But for some reason, it just doesn't want to know this time around. So I might have to download it as an ISO and try and install it offline rather than waiting for it to come.
That's what I've done. Install a big updates with ISO. I think I have way more success than that. And I've had hangs on updates too. I had one where it was right before our church service, and we were sweating because those things can go forever. And we used our audio mixer with our laptop as well. So it was like I was sweating. So every time I use Windows and see an update, I get like anxiety. Just
that's a terrible situation, isn't it? I must say.
The Mac isn't any better in some respects. At least with Linux, you can still go and do your stuff and whatever, and it's just updating in the background. If it has to be rebooted, it'll tell you restart. With my Mac, once it gets to a certain point, it's going to.
Oh yeah.
If you choose to update at that time, and you're out of luck for like 15 minutes.
It's aggressive. It sneaks in there.
Yeah, they don't even update in the background.
They weren't always like that. Mac wasn't always like that. In the last couple of releases is when they've started to do that, and it's extremely annoying. And so I click, do it later, and then I forget about it, and then they just get more and more and more. But yeah, I mean, the Mac isn't as user friendly that way as it used to be.
So how much more annoying is it going to get if it eventually goes down the service route, which everybody seems to be at the moment? They will completely take away your control of when you do or don't do an update because they are providing the service. So if you think I personally cannot see them doing it. It will be the single biggest mistake they have ever made if they go to subscription.
Yeah, it will irritate a lot of people, and we better be ready because they're going to come over to Linux, I think.
Ramp up my Linux install website.
Well, I've heard both sides of the story as far as the people arguing that they are going to become a service, and then the other side that say it's
just for enterprise.
Yeah, it's just for the enterprise, and there's no worries on that. And they would be stupid in order to put that to every home user, but Microsoft has not always made the smartest decisions before. So, and they may be tired of taking care of all of this Windows Update stuff. So they must just decide to do that. But I think, Dan, you're right. I think we should be ready.
No, I was going to say, I think at the end of the day, though, go ahead, Barb.
Okay, look what Microsoft already did with Office. I mean, they're really pushing the Office 365 with the subscription.
Yep.
And they even now made the web version of Microsoft Office usable on Linux, which it wasn't a year ago. So that's what they want. They want everybody to go to that annual thing. It's more money for them.
Well, that's the thing. They are taking the whole SaaS or software as a service thing that, lo and behold, the open source movement kind of did that to ourselves in that regard, because that's how we software as a service. And they're just taking it to the utmost extreme and making the OS the software to that extreme, which I think if they do it, they're going to make if anybody has any experience running thin clients, it is a terrible, terrible experience as a OS doing it that way.
Yeah, but when you talk about them going to a service, how would that even work? When you're talking how many millions of computers in inner cities and people who can't afford, much of anything, let alone you want them to pay a monthly fee for a service to just have a computer.
Yeah.
How do you
do if you have a family? You also like me. I have 3 computers. Do I pay for every computer?
Yep.
Or is there? I guess there will be some sort of family pack, but
that's what it is. The family
that
pack
adds up to a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
it's like the streaming service should. I have Netflix, HBO, and Hulu, and also just
All that just to cut the cord on your instead of having cable or satellite.
Who here
It's
has
cost you
Hulu
more.
and Netflix though?
Huh?
Who here has Netflix and Hulu? Who pay for both?
I don't have either.
I don't
I
have
pay for
either.
both, but I'm usually not the one that watches it. It's usually somebody else in my family.
Yeah, so I've seen this trend where people like will pay one and they'll share the other with a friend or family, and then little by little they're actually just biting the bullet and saying I'm buying for both. They're paying for both services, and so I think what Microsoft is doing is socializing us through Office 365, which Barb mentioned, to adopt this model of like, okay, I'll pay a little bit every month and get a bigger service. Because look what they did with Office 365. I get 2 terabytes or 1 terabyte or 2 terabytes. I forget.
1 terabyte.
1 terabyte.
1
and
terabyte per license.
And I get 5 copies of Microsoft Office that automatically up. So they just sweeten the pocket and the deal so much so that it's like, okay, I guess I'll pull the trigger on that. And they're big enough to afford that investment. So
Yeah,
there's
but what happens 2 years down the line when they suddenly start charging you for those 5 individually instead?
well,
I don't think
that's
they
the business model. I don't think they will, but that's probably the business model. They can upsell it, like Amazon Prime.
Look what Adobe has done. Adobe has gone for Photoshop and everything else. They have gone from, you go and you buy it and you get X number of updates, whatever, and your release comes out, you go buy the next one. Now it is a monthly fee.
Yeah.
And if you stop paying that monthly fee after, 3 months or 6 months, you have a bunch of files that
you can't use. Yeah.
That's scary stuff.
Yeah,
It is.
that's the problem when you have.
that's.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Now I was thinking if you have the operating system as a paid service, it's just like ransomware. If you stop paying, and what you
Legalize
do,
ransomware.
pay and you get your files back.
Yeah.
Yeah, resubscribe and you get your files back. Exactly.
Well, before we get in danger of having to call this Big Daddy Windows Live, we should go back to Linux. So we do have to decide on a distro challenge this week.
Hang on, get me ready. Because we are not going down the dark one LTG route. So,
Oh, come on.
We actually have to pick one that Matt will use.
Good luck with that.
go on in, Matt. Give it out.
I just want to say before we decide on it that it doesn't have to be the most crazy, out of the world, nobody uses type Linux. It can be Ubuntu, for crying out loud. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have to pick something crazy. We can just pick
Where's the fun in that?
This is Matt.
Well,
challenge.
The problem is when we pick, out of the way distros, not everybody's going to try them.
Oh, I know.
Hence the Gecko challenge, Matt, that you didn't try.
Because I don't do OpenSUSE or RPM in general.
So with that said, we do need to pick something. So
go on, Matt. Let us know so we can say no from the start, and then we can go and pick one.
I'm going to be good and let you guys make the suggestion. I'm going to be good.
Ubuntu Budgie.
I was going to say actually Ubuntu Budgie personally, but
oh
really?
Me and Dark
I love
One.
Ubuntu Budgie. That's an awesome desktop.
It is. I have to say, it is an awesome desktop. And I mean, okay. So, what do you guys think about the differences between Solus and Ubuntu Budgie?
I think it's smart that they're bringing it back in.
Ubuntu Budgie out on the ledge.
Well, the only reason they've done that is because of the Python applets that they've got in there. Because Ike doesn't like the Python applets, he doesn't want to support Python, and they've had a 10-hour hack fest over the last day. So I think they're making some new applets and power applets, and that I've seen Josh doing on his hack fest. So maybe they're starting to ramp up a few of their own applets as well. So
was that a long one or what?
Like that was called 10 hours.
Oh my god!
I know. So I don't know exactly what they were working on, but I just watched a little bit of it. But they were definitely working on an applet at the time, so maybe they're trying to do their own.
But did you notice the absence of Ike in the whole show?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's ever on the. Is he normally on Hack
He's
Fest?
the one who started them.
Yeah, he was on them.
Normally, Josh is the one that runs it, though, in most cases. But they haven't had one for a long time.
That could be a really good thing or a really bad thing for the Solus project, because at one time, in one sense, Ike is so the visionary. I had one actually really solid conversation with Ike on Telegram, and he is a thinker, man. Like, I know he comes off this rough and rugged kind of guy, but he is a thinker, and it could be that he's being so visionary that he's prepping the groundwork for that next level, or it could be that something happened, or he's just really letting go a little bit of the project, and it's just going to kind of sink or swim. Not so much like with or without him, but he's just kind of distancing himself a little bit and empowering others along the way. And by doing that, it might lose that Ike touch, so to speak, that made it successful to begin with. So I'm kind of worried a little bit, but I'm also hoping for the best that he's gonna hit the scene, drop almost like a Beyonce album out of nowhere, and just like, oh hey, what's up, mothers? It's Solus 4, right at you, and then we just like love it,
Well, I'm going to get in there first. If we're going to do the Ubuntu challenge, I'll take the budgie desktop.
Well, like I said, we can make it specific to Ubuntu Budgie.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say.
That's why I said I'll take budgie, yeah.
And Zeb, I got you all worried.
But
Matt was going to say to us we needed to run chaos.
I was going to say chaos.
I would be perfectly fine with that. I would be.
But
actually,
then I also told him I was going to say Sabion again.
Actually, Madhouse said about trying Netrunner, and that I would be perfectly fine with too.
Netrunner. Oh my God! Please do Sabion.
But are you going to do the rolling or the stable with Netrunner?
I don't think it really matters, to be honest with you.
Yeah, because one of them's Debian and the other one's Arch.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is you're still going to get the Netrunner experience.
Mm-hmm.
So either way, we could, like I said, we could make it specific to something. We could say, hey, rolling. But
is it Dustin who does the budgie?
It is. Yeah. It is Dustin that does the budgie.
So let's show him some love, because I know he's like he always gets the hump with Ryan because they're supposed to be mates and Ryan never runs budgie.
Well, I love Ike, and we talked to him on Destination Linux a lot of times.
Yeah, those are good episodes.
Yeah,
and he's definitely once he makes up his mind, that's what he's going to do. He's sometimes changes it, but I think in this instance, I think it is a mistake not to try to work with the Ubuntu Budgie team, and maybe he doesn't. It's not his responsibility to work with them; it's their responsibility to work with him. Let's put it this way: either way you look at it, there's a communication gap between the two, and I think there's a mistake not to bring that together, because them applets make Ubuntu Budgie really, really good. And they may not... Go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say, and the thing is, it's like, that's so not like Ike to not be willing to work with people. I mean, he's done work with like Martin and stuff with Ubuntu Mate and stuff. So it would be just really weird for him not to be willing to extend even the hand anyway.
But I think it's more...
even if Ubuntu Budgie is like, no, whatever. But I think it's odd that that's the vibe that he gives off anyway.
Well, one, I think there's problems on both sides as far as communication. It's not just one side, okay? And two, Ike is able to, or is very good at working with other people. But if you notice, when it comes to basically his code, he wants it done right. And if he doesn't feel it's being done right, he's not going to have it. And if he feels that the code that they're using is not right, that's basically his strong point, is that that's not right and that's not going in my desktop kind of thing. Yep. But I think that's where the communication should come in, to say there's got to be some type of happy medium to work this out some way.
Dustin did say on one of the Big Daddy Linux Live, yes, we should we should send things more upstream, which we're very bad at doing. He did say that. And I quite often wonder whether Ike said, no, I do not want Python. This is the standard. And whether they've gone against that or not is another thing. I don't know. I mean, and maybe he's not happy about it. That could be an issue, may not be an issue. I'm just thinking out loud. But
the other thing too, Colin, is this is not just something that happened recently. This communication between them has been goofy for a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like even from the very beginning when it was Budgie Remix, there was bad communication between them.
Right.
So it's not just it just popped up. It's been from the beginning.
And if you think about it, Daniel Foray has done exactly the same thing with Elementary. You have to write your applications in a specific way to fit with their workflow, to fit with their design philosophy. And if you don't do it, your app's not going in the store.
Right.
So there's no real difference.
Yeah. And that's their choice too. That's the thing. And they're doing it so that they have some kind of control and consistency. And that makes sense because you get a lot of crappy written code. You really do. I mean, I've seen some really bad stuff over the years.
Agreed.
And what they want is they want consistency. So if somebody else picks it up, they can run with it. They can work on it. But if you've got this part in Python and that's done by somebody who just learned how to code on his own without any idea of, the design process, you end up having something you can't support.
Barb, I think you hit
and
it
that's
right
looking
on
at
the
it
head.
as a programmer.
You hit it right on the head because the second you start allowing like compromises, now you need eyeballs to vet whether those compromises are being honored at the level of which you compromised on, and they're not taking it a little bit further, or they're reneging on something down the road. And so I think it's really smart, especially on a small team like Elementary or like Solus, that you just got to say, maybe down the road we can be more compromising because we can afford it with money and staff and manpower. But until then, like you can't. There's another big problem with these like one-off distributions and stuff like that. You got to be honest with where you are, and these distributions have to get serious. That you're a one-man show and you got to act like it. Like you don't front like you could do all these things, because then they bite off more than they can chew. They get burned out, and then they want to bail down the road. And
there's nobody else to pick it up, and nobody has any idea how it's written.
And when they do pick it up, it's a disaster transitioning, and then people leave off of that.
Because different people think differently. But if you have standards, and this is what we expect, and this is the language we want to write it in, instead of having part of it in Python, which is an interpretive language, part of it in C, part of it in something else, then nobody can support it. And it's got to be supportable.
I was going to say, I think a lot of Ike's hesitation is the fact that he initially listened to other people. Rocco, you know what I mean when what's Ike's take on Vala? And he went against his better judgment, according to him, and used Vala to help write Budgie. And he has regret, as he has said repeatedly, he does not a fan.
Right.
So I think him exerting or Solus as a project, exerting a little more control is to reflect Ike kind of hardening down potentially on that. This is how I'm seeing it. This is how I want to do it, and this is my interpretation of it. And trying, like Elementary, kind of trying to give a cohesive experience that they think is what they want.
Yeah,
I agree.
If any of you have ever worked in a large company or a larger company in terms of software development, they have specific ways things have to be done, the language to be used, so that when you're gone, because you're probably not going to be there forever, the next person can pick it up and go with it. Just get an idea of, maybe you do, even down to how you do your variables. That's why, like, I spent almost 7 years working in developing software for the military. I worked in an engineering company that did logistics engineering, and we had to follow the mill standard. I had a programmer who worked under me. He said, "Well, that's not how we did it at the community college." I said, "This is not the community college. This is what the you've got to do it this way. And don't do it this way. Go back to the community college." Because this way, when I left that place 7 years later, and the work went back to IBM, the person who I used to work with was able to pick it up and go with it.
Right.
And that's what Ike's trying to get that hold back on. I'm sure that at Canonical, they don't just have parts in this and parts in that, and so does it this way, and so does it that way. You can't sustain software that way.
It's called systems thinking.
I totally agree.
Yes. And yes.
Is it
That
bad
was what I
though
was.
that you've got?
Analyst for
Is
years.
it bad that you've got one guy willing to write some Python codes and enhance the desktop even further, and he's willing to give his time to do that? And some of the things he's done work very well. So, you know, you can't criticise his work, I suppose, but is it wrong that they've let him put them in there, or they have put it in there? I don't know. But it has definitely changed the Budgie desktop experience in Ubuntu Budgie for the better, I must say.
Yep.
You know,
Well, here's a
so
slight
is it right or is it-
challenge then. It's going to be the Budgie desktop, and you pick the OS you run it on.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
Kind of like the way Mate
Okay.
is.
Yeah.
All right.
You know, yeah, most people think of Ubuntu Mate, but when I ran Gecko, I was using the Mate desktop, and it was identical. A couple
Should
of
be
weird
good.
little things. There were Ubuntu things that
I like that,
went in
Zeb.
there.
Yep, I like that. We can then talk about whoever's, we can split it and talk about the differences between the two and
Yeah.
what we would miss with the other one.
Yeah. That's a good one.
But I think that, I agree that there should be standards for code, and I agree with the decision to say, hey, we're not going to just allow anything in here. I just think it's a shame that such good apps are kind of going by the wayside, and Solus is not taking advantage of those because they definitely enhance the Ubuntu Budgie desktop. And without them, I don't know if there would be that many people running Ubuntu Budgie right now.
Bingo.
So here's a question for you coders out there then. Did the guys working on Ubuntu Budgie choose to do it in Python because that's what they're good at, or because it doesn't work in any other type of programming language?
It's their community college.
I read it was because his main thing was Python. His main language was Python.
Right.
So that's what I read.
Yeah, there's a lot of apps that are being made, and they're usually being made by the one guy who uses Python, and that's what he likes
Yeah,
to use.
and that's
so,
the language he knows.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I know what Barb is talking about. I worked 10 years in a maintenance training flight when I was in the Air Force, and I was doing graphics for this courseware development that we're making training programs for the flight line mechanics. And every once in a while, we would have to get a contractor in on doing certain sections of our training programs. And you'd always have those guys in the contractors. Well, we don't program that way. We're looking at them, well, that's what the contract specifies. That's how you're going to do it. Or you lose a contract. We actually broke 2 contracts.
Exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you have to be that way from the beginning, but when you are a small project, of course you have to do your own thing and make it your own way and learn on the way. But as you grow, you do have to take on those standardizations. Like everyone wants to talk around that because they want to be hip and cool and say, no, we're gonna be shoot from the hip and feeling the gut. Like no, like the Ike and Daniel are this is their livelihood they're talking about. They're not gonna be just as they grow. They have to adopt these, systems thinking methodologies out there. But going back to, I think Colin, what do you do with the people who actually wanted to, add value to their desktop? And that was my hope for GNOME. The whole extensions model. That was my hope that GNOME could be that modular, super, customizable enhancement where you're just a platform. And I think ultimately that's a great way to think of desktop environments being a platform for other things come in. But even then you set parameters on those extensions. Unfortunately, GNOME, they would no, they weren't really great with that. But that was a hope. I think there's still an opportunity for a desktop. Probably Solus, the Budgie probably has the best opportunity for that kind of methodology of a platform-based desktop environment for those applets and stuff.
Well, Linux Mint's a good example of that, aren't they? I mean, they had just anyone doing anything in their applets and all that, and now they've gained control over the applets that go into Linux Mint as well now. And I don't believe they've all caught up. Sometimes they're not, they don't function sometimes the way you want them, but at least they have control over it and what people are putting in there. So, and that's one change that I've seen, which was a good thing, because now they can keep it up to a standard, I suppose. I don't know whether the people have to, I think they have to submit it, I think, to Linux Mint. I'm not quite sure how that works. I just know that they've gained control of it.
But you can side load it, or you can have it come through some store, like KDE. You can install desktop wallpapers through their, back channels that they have. Like, they can do that, or you can side load it, install from file. Like, it all really depends. But so there's opportunities for them. Like Rocco said, like they could have reached some type of like middle ground, and it said that they didn't. But I think we all understand why.
And if you want to know for sure, Colin, just ask in the Destination Linux Telegram group, because isn't there one of the Mint developers in there?
Yeah.
Joe McCullough, something?
Actually, yeah, there is. What's his name?
Joseph.
Joseph, that's right. Yeah, is he Mint, is he?
Yeah.
I did see that he was a developer. I didn't know it was Mint. Okay. All right.
Cool.
Joseph McCullough or something like that. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, I might ask him that, because it's an interesting subject. Because KDE, they do it quite well with a lot of things, don't they? Like, you go into the settings, you can install from the settings menu a lot of things with KDE. So yeah, I like that. I just, for some reason, KDE just not for me. For some reason, Plasma. I like it. I think it looks great. I just get bored with it for some reason.
Fit with your workflow.
Yeah, I don't know. Don't know.
I'll tell you what, I've been using like Cinnamon Mint 19 for like 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks on and off, just lightly, and it's just a refreshing breather as a Neon user, and working in that environment. Like, having a GTK that's actually like makes sense and like feels like I don't have anxiety just using it, because it's going to like eat all my RAM every minute that I'm on it,
Wow.
So
tell us how you really feel.
Like some other lawn ornaments, you mean?
Yeah. So I was like, wow, the GTK, like I missed, like there's something about the GTK like dimensions when they do, I guess, either Mint's implementation of it, but in general, GTK and their dimensions of their borders and files, and when things pop up, and it's super clean, super crisp, and it almost like got me missing a little bit GTK, a little bit. So it's I think it was refreshing to use.
Carl's back.
I'm back.
Oh.
I was going to say, we haven't got your
How's that monkey doing? Oh man.
Well, you said, how long did you say you were running Linux Mint? For 2 weeks?
About 2.5 weeks. Yeah.
See, now to me, I used to run Cinnamon for a while, and that to me was like in my opinion, it was probably my favorite behind KDE at the time, because I hadn't used GNOME yet. But Cinnamon was like my favorite desktop environment behind KDE, because it had that perfect balance of being able to customize and not getting lost everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And the settings themselves were in a place where you would think they would be.
Yeah, I was impressed by that too. The settings menu, like it was clean, simple. There was one element that was a little too simple for me, where it's like, whoa, this was like lazy, like UI. But overall though, like even when you right click the desktop, all the things that came when the right click on the desktop to do things, I think it gave you enough options. Whereas if I right click now my Neon desktop, sometimes like crazy, or if I'm in files or Dolphin rather, if I right click, like a million things come up. So I thought I agree that balance is a great word to describe Cinnamon.
Yep.
But,
all right.
I've actually on Linux Mint 19 have had, surprisingly for me, for the first time ever running Linux Mint, I've had 2 crashes on the settings manager and 2 crashes.
Really?
software manager. Yeah, never ever has that ever happened to me before. It seems to now settled down a little bit now. I don't know what that was all about, but it seems to be running fine now. But speaking of the Budgie desktop, the Budgie desktop has very simple, what can you say? One-click options to change your panels and stuff, which I always wished that Linux Mint had in the Cinnamon desktop. Those one-click options to do that, and Budgie does that very, very well, I must say.
The best thing about Budgie is the defaults. They're probably some of the best defaults around.
Yes.
The thing that bothers me the most about Budgie is not being able not really not being able to customize it the way I want to. No, it's actually really nice looking wise. I mean, it's a sleek modern desktop, but not being able to customize it as much as I'd like is probably its downfall for me. Like the menu. If you don't like the Budgie menu, you're stuck with it. Too bad. There is no other menu. Where like in KDE, you have another menu. Cinnamon, you have other menus you could use, you could switch out for. Where that, to me, is the biggest downside for Budgie.
Absolutely.
Can't you put the Mate menu
no, you can't.
into Budgie now?
Nope.
No. Doesn't work in there.
I don't think
What was this that Martin was working on?
The brisk menu, Ike, and then we're working on.
Yeah.
Oh, the risk menu for Mate itself.
Yeah, that's specifically designed for Mate, and it's not ever going to go into. Now, they talked about, Ike had mentioned the fact of trying to work on a new menu, but I've seen nothing past that since then, and that was a while ago. So, I don't think it's high on the priority list.
Can I say something that you guys let me know if it's fair or not? Is Budgie just a regurgitated Cinnamon desktop?
It seems more like an earlier GNOME desktop.
I think it's better GNOME at being GNOME than GNOME is.
It is very similar to Cinnamon, I must say.
That's my point.
Or not, I don't know, but it definitely. But Ike had his original Solus was quite good as well. I can't remember exactly what that had as a desktop environment. Actually,
it was it was the Budgie desktop on Solus.
No, I don't think it was.
Oh, you mean way before?
No, I'm going way back because I was using his.
Yeah.
It was the only Linux desktop that I could get Skype working on back maybe 6-7 years ago when Skype was big. I couldn't get it working in Ubuntu or any other distro, but the Solus one, no problem at all.
I'm gonna look it up now.
I don't know what it was. Well, is that the one that was based on Debian way back when?
I think it was based on Debian, yeah. Yeah, I think it was. And I've been following him since, and then he sort of drifted away, and then he came back with the Budgie desktop. And like I said, I like the way the one-click thing works. And when you do the, like you've got the, when you shorten the panel, you make it a dock. That's a great idea, and that works very well. And then when you put them on the side of the screen, everything changes accordingly, which Linux Mint doesn't sort of work that well with side panels.
I think that was his own fork of GNOME 2, because that's the whole debacle was when GNOME went to GNOME 3, and he played on GNOME 2, and that's when he started tweaking it and adjusting it. So that might have been his first variant of Budgie, but it wasn't Budgie back then for sure.
No, definitely wasn't.
So, Rocco, what are you deciding on then for us for the challenge?
Ubuntu Budgie. Or, okay, like you said, Budgie. You guys desktop? Pick which ones you want to run. If you want to run Solus or you want to run Ubuntu Budgie. I'm probably going to run Ubuntu Budgie.
Me too.
Same here.
Me too. I want to check out those Python things.
I'm going to start up with Ubuntu Budgie, but I might switch over to Solus, just be me.
Well, it would be good if some of us pick Solus.
I'll pick Solus. I'll go there.
Okay. Because that way we can have a little discussion back and forth then on what's...
Although I'm reading something about Ubuntu Budgie that doesn't count with Thunderbird.
Yeah, but that's easily installed.
Yeah. So do I have to install Thunderbird?
Yeah, I mean, that's a...
I know. I'm just saying.
And Neon doesn't come with Thunderbird either.
Comes with kit mail.
And just
No, it
as a
doesn't
quick
come with
head-
K-mail.
I don't know. I forgot. It comes with
No.
nothing.
No,
Yeah.
nothing.
Just as a quick heads up, if you are going to install Ubuntu Budgie, do not go the minimal route because it's minimal and there's about 6 or 7 apps that are missing for it even to sort of function in a semi-usable way.
Right.
So don't do the minimal because they went a bit OTT in what they took back out.
Good heads
To
up.
be
Thank
honest with
Thank
you-
you, Zeb.
To be honest with you, Zeb, I don't use the minimal on any of them anymore. You know, like when it first came out, I thought it was like a great thing. But after installing it on a few distros and finding out that some things are not there, like back-end things are not there that probably need to be, I don't do the minimal install anymore. Does anybody else?
No.
I did the minimal install with like Ubuntu proper, but I haven't done one with any of the spins. You know, so like Kubuntu or Xubuntu. It seemed to have everything I needed as far as working anyway.
I expected the minimal to be like, just get all those apps out of my way and I'll install what I want.
Right.
And that's it. That's what I thought the minimal was going to be. But then you sort of going back to late 90s, early 2000s, messing around with things again because, not like you said, Rocco, not all back-end stuff is there. So it can be a little bit annoying. So
Well, it's not supposed to, I mean, like, the only thing that they say that they take out is, you know, things that you might not use.
Like the
for
default
example,
games.
yeah, like the games or like Thunderbird. You may not use Thunderbird, so they may take that out. But I found that there's been some, you know, back-end programs, libraries and stuff that need to be there for other programs to work. And, you know, you end up having to do trial and error installing things in order to get it working.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure, again, on Budgie, I remember we had Dustin on the show just after it came out, and they openly admitted that they then had to provide scripts to put a lot of that stuff back in so you could have a minimal working install.
Yeah,
So,
that's unfortunate because I see some value actually in having a minimal install without having all the apps. You know, as
Me
long as
too.
you got the back end stuff, that should be good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I was going to say, I definitely appreciate having like that blank canvas kind of approach, but that's kind of at this point, that's like, if they're going to do it, you might as well just go like the Bodhi Linux route, just like start doing your own thing.
Well, that's what drew me to Neon, was that it's just a minimal
Stream, right?
install. I mean,
Sure.
there's like nothing there, and you install what you want. That to me is cool, but I didn't have near the. And I don't want to make it sound like I had tons and tons of issues, but I did have 1 or 2 issues with the minimal install. So that's all I'm going to say.
Just a quick throwback to the
EB in house.
conversation.
Careful.
Who's in the house?
EB in the house.
Oh, snap.
Lock up.
So I was going to say, so can we expect a lot more explicitives than I would ever give?
No,
Yeah, dude,
EB's
Madison's
very
so
good
good.
when he comes on. He's very good at keeping it G-rated.
he is indeed. We both are, in fact.
Yeah.
Matt, I'm very impressed that you are. You are very good at that. Now, I do expect a video about the Windows licensing issue on your channel.
So yeah, about
Just
that.
saying.
Just be one long beep.
Yeah, exactly.
I flatlined the entire video.
All right, so let me hold on. Let me write this down of who's trying what because we have to have it like a somewhat even. So, Dan, you're gonna do Solus,
Yep, I'll do Solus.
and who else said they were gonna do Solus? Anybody?
Who said Solus?
I think
I mean,
Frank did.
Frank? Maybe Frank.
Frank and Carl.
How come Frank's always mute? Is he muting himself?
Because
I
I think
have-
he has a fan on the background. He doesn't want to have it.
No,
blowing.
I have to mute
Oh,
him. I have to mute
right.
him because of the key. He's when he's typing. It's very loud.
Oh, okay.
So I hate to mute him.
How about Manjaro with Budgie?
Whoa, that's a thing.
I was
There you
gonna
go.
do,
There you go.
Linux-
Just give me a new
That'd be
spin.
interesting.
Do it.
Yeah.
I'll
Cool.
do the
Yeah, do
Arco
it.
Fix Budgie again. I'll do that. That's the Arco Linux D. So I'll reinstall that again. And
Dude, I didn't know Budgie was everywhere.
Oh,
yeah.
All right, so Colin, you're going to do the Arco Budgie. Carl,
I'll
you're going
do
to do
the Arco,
Manjaro.
What's Barb's cat gonna do?
Yeah,
Who's
what's
doing
Buster
that?
gonna do?
Barb, are you gonna do Solus?
I might. I wouldn't do solos. I might would try the. I may try the Ubuntu budgie.
We'll expect to hear from you next week, Barb.
Yes.
And the cat's going to do. The cat's going to do.
The cat's gonna do it.
Yeah, no, the cat's going to do any budgie that she happens to find out in the garden.
Right. He will find it very tasty.
Yep.
And we don't really want a nice little deposit on next week's show with a little furry thing inside the mouth.
How many Ubuntu budgies do we have?
A
Who's going to
budgie?
do Ubuntu budgie?
I'm a maybe.
All right, so
That's cool.
Barb,
Four.
Zeb, Matt,
And sorry, prophetic is 5.
Prophetic.
If you want me to switch, I'll switch.
I got
but-
4. Who's? I got Barb, Zeb, Matt, and prophetic. Who's the fifth
And
one?
yourself, is it? I thought
Yourself.
Well, I was going to say because
Keegan?
because there's only 2 people trying Solus, I may switch over to try Solus.
wait.
Did we get Keegan?
Yeah.
Keegan, what are you going to try?
I'll do Ubuntu budgie.
Okay, Keegan, you're going to be on the Ubuntu.
Well, that'll be
budgie,
good
so-
because that'll be 8 months late, my year on Solus.
Very funny, Zeb. Very funny.
I didn't bring it up this time.
He's just keeping himself honest.
Whatever.
You thought you was going to get away with all this, didn't you? You thought, that's it. I've pulled myself out. I'll be safe. You forgot fiddle.
Somebody's got to forget this. I mean, we just got to
English-
let that
No.
go, man.
No,
English box said.
Well, I mean, if it was Michael, kind of like he forgets what time is. But,
Wait, that was so last year, Zeb.
it's a regression.
All right, so this will work out. This will work out pretty good. We got 3 on Solus and 5 on Ubuntu Budgie, and then Colin will do Arco and
And English Bob's in chat said he's going to do Arco Linux as well, budgie. Arco
Okay.
budgie.
And Carl said he's going to do what was it?
Manjaro.
Manjaro.
Manjaro, nice.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's
I
a
did
good
not know it
mix.
was everywhere.
Yeah, we should definitely have a good mix and definitely have some good opinions. So yeah, that'll work out
And
pretty
I
good.
apologize about the fan, but it's very hot in this apartment. So
No. I didn't, Frank. It's actually me. I've been muting you because, and it's not has nothing to do with the fan. It's when you start typing on a laptop, it you can hear it come through the mic, the banging. So I mute
I
you when
apologize.
you're typing. It's okay. It's no big deal. I'm just saying, just so you know, that's why I'm muting you.
that's why I had this laptop over here. That's why you see half my head this way.
It's not a driver issue.
But Frank, trust me, you're not as bad as when Joe's on with his keyboard, because then we get.
Oh, that keyboard.
I know.
sounds like she's crunching up paper the entire time.
Doesn't it? Ah,
That's
I
a
moved-
loud keyboard, yeah.
I brought down my MacBook keyboard just because for you guys, so I don't have to, you don't hear my mechanical keyboard go off.
Yeah, but I don't think it might not even be the keyboard so much as the fact that his mic, I think, is right on the desk.
Oh, true.
And you can hear that pounding. Like it's not so much the
right.
keys, it's the pounding on the desk.
Oh yes.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
But Dan, like what kind of mic you got? You got your sound is like amazing.
Oh, okay. It's a Shure. It's an analog mic. I'm actually running it through a mixer.
Damn.
It's an
That'd be
Alesis mixer that's USB out into my machine.
Nice. What mixer are you using?
It's the Alesis Multimix 8.
I have to look that up because you got some
It's a-
amazing sound.
Okay, it's an older mixer. It's not real new.
What? Just put me on for this. What's like the thing? Is it just like amazing sound quality when you have a mixer through piping
It,
through your
it,
laptop?
it gives you different controls. You can have different sound inputs and that kind of thing.
yeah, and you can filter,
Yeah,
filter
There's
stuff
some
out.
total control and stuff on there. So
I think
about
the
it.
main thing is the mic, the SMB. That's a great
yeah,
mic.
it's an SM3. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely a great mic.
I'll have to look into getting a different mic.
You sound pretty good, Frank. Actually,
Yeah, it's not the mic. It's not your mic that sounds bad. It's just like I said, the typing is where it goes bad.
I'm using my Lenovo laptop here, and it's got a great
Yeah.
mic already built in. So
yeah. Some laptop mics are just terrible, like cell phone mics from back in like
Mhm.
90s.
Well, let's hope
I have
with
no idea.
blue mics being bought by Logitech, we actually get some decent webcam mics.
That's true.
Who was bought by Logitech?
Yeah,
Blue mic.
blue
Really?
mic. Yeah. So let's
I'm
hope
using
we get some decent webcam mics finally.
Yeah, well,
I'm using their Yeti.
they won't work with Linux then if Logitech bought them. Just saying.
So is your one the SMB7, Dan? Your mic?
I think
Or
it's
the
SMB3.
It's the 7B. Yeah, sorry.
It's the 7B, yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
That is like that.
It's-
Every time. Okay, so I have researched mics for the longest time, and that mic constantly comes up as being one of the best sounding mics out there.
I should
And-
hope so too at the cost.
Yeah,
Well,
they're crazy expensive. But
Yes.
I didn't pay that. I bought it used.
Yeah, but
Nice.
Zeb, there are other expensive mics that don't sound as good.
As good as that, yeah. But no, £380 for a mic in the UK. That's
Yeah.
a fair chunk of money, yeah.
Yeah, because I was pricing them before, and they're super expensive. But
They are
Then
crazy.
don't forget, on top of that, that mixer you've got was probably what, $150 or something?
Yeah, thereabouts. Probably when I got it. It's like I said, it's an older generation. So I mean, I'm sure there's something newer out. I've had it for a while, probably 10 years almost. So
Mm-hmm.
Dan,
Wow.
do you do pirate radio?
no, I'm actually
Ham?
amateur radio. Yeah, I'm him. Radio.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice. I'm still waiting
Like
for
you
Matt
said,
to
it
drop
looks
that
like
Behind me
album.
over there.
Yeah, you got some sort of kit behind you there, yeah.
I'm waiting for Matt to drop that album. It looks like he's in the studio right now, going to sing us a song.
well, that mic is $400 on Amazon right now. So
Yeah, $399.
Yep.
Nice.
awesome mic though.
Sections.
All right, does anybody else have anything they want to mention before we close this out?
No, it's all good here.
Oh, real
All right.
quick. I want to mention one thing. I'm looking at the first versions of Solus and the first versions of Cinnamon. They look almost the same.
Right.
Almost the same. So let's take that for what it means.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Like I said, I might switch in between. Who knows?
That's all right. We got plenty on both sides now. So, Zeb, you got the last word first. The first last word.
Well, we completed our first recording tonight of Destination Linux without you, and we really missed you being there. But hopefully, it will turn out okay. So watch that when it comes out next week.
I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure
It'll
it'll
be
turn
great.
out to be an awesome episode. Colin?
Don't you dare leave Big Daddy Linux live.
Yeah, we'll crowdfund the mic for you, Big Daddy.
Oh yeah. You
No,
can
no.
start. You can
Michael
start
was
right
the
now.
one
If
that
you like.
needed. Michael was the one that we were doing the fundraising for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you
We
can
got
start.
to-
Duck's digital / whatever.
We're
You
gonna
can
buy it
start.
through his Amazon affiliate link.
You can start funding for it now, and I may get it in
2 years.
2050. Matthias.
Yeah.
Thumbs up.
Have a good night. Yeah.
All right.
There you go.
Thumbs up. All right, Dan. Last word.
Yeah, Gecko. It wasn't bad. So looking forward to Solus. See how it goes.
Nice.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Really.
You're welcome
having
anytime,
you.
man.
Yeah, it's great.
Matt.
Going GTK will be interesting. That's all I'm gonna say.
Barb.
What Colin said, you can't leave.
I'm not leaving.
Okay.
See, Barb. There's no prep work in this. There's no time. It's just me sitting down, hitting streaming, record. So there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, Rocco's hair
We
is always
understand-
nice
we
like that.
understand.
Yes.
We understand that. Rocco.
Does Michael get
I mean, we
tips
all
from you, or do
understand
you
that,
get tips from Michael?
Michael doesn't tip me. I usually tip Michael. Frank, last word.
It's been fun, folks. Thank you for letting me be here, and looking forward to give the try on Solus.
Nice.
Nice.
Prophetic.
Linux, it just works. Asterix.
Especially Katie. Yeah.
See the footnotes.
Asterix. Yeah.
All right, Carl, last word.
Congratulations to Rocco on your retirement from Clinic. And yeah, thanks for keeping the live stream going. We love it.
Yeah, seriously.
Nice.
Dig it.
Good
Keegan?
words.
Thanks for having me on tonight, and I hope everybody has a good week of budgie jumping.
Yeah, budgie jumping.
Bungee jumping. Really?
We do need a pun because Michael's not here. So
All right.
Tuxdigital.com/sales.
you knew there wasn't going to be a stream without a Tux Digital plug.
We almost made it, Matt. We almost made it.
So close, but yet so far.
Just so that you can't have a stream without it.
Oh my god! Really?
Michael, you're here in spirit, buddy.
Now, my last word is thank you to each and every one of you for showing up, because it's what you guys do every day that makes the community. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay.
All right. Thanks to everybody in the chat.
Peace.
We'll see you next week.
Yep.
See you guys.
Catches.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Good night.